If you're a skeptic and you have enough public conversations with people, then you will inevitably be asked the following question. Well, what's the harm in believing in that crazy thing, or this conspiracy theory, or this piece of pseudoscience? What's it to you? Or to put it another way, what's the harm that my old crazy aunt believes in fairies? It gives her something to think about and add some spice to her life. If you've been caught in this situation and found yourself unable to respond, then I'm going to help you out. Here are 5 ways in which believing in nonsense causes harm. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe below. And with that said, let's get on with it. Number 1. People's beliefs determine how they vote and how they act. While it usually isn't brought up, it's very, very hard to have a private belief that doesn't in some way affect your worldview. For example, it's hard to imagine that someone being against vaccination wouldn't affect their voting patterns, or that believing in creationism would not affect how someone votes for school boards in their local elections. As these 2 examples prove, having beliefs usually dictates how you vote. Thus, at least in these examples, believing in nonsense can absolutely affect society and have dire consequences for our civilization as a whole. Number 2. Sometimes when people believe in baloney, they replace actual medical science with nonsense. This is certainly true when it comes to dietary fads and things like vaccination. Replacing an essential medication with flapdoodle has the potential to kill someone. If you think that this is an exaggeration, then I implore you to visit whatstheharm.com. There you'll see a lot of examples of people who, instead of using science and medication, relied on nonsense. This caused many of these people's health to deteriorate, or at the very least to empty their wallets. Number 3. If someone can make you believe absurdities, then they can make you commit atrocities. While believing in certain things like Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster may seem harmless enough, these beliefs are actually like canaries in the coal mines for having poor critical thinking skills. If someone is gullible enough to believe in fairies, or UFO abductions, or haunted houses, then they probably have very low evidential standards. This means that they are much more likely to be fooled by snake oil salesmen and other charlatans who do not have their best interests in mind. While it does not show that these beliefs are intrinsically harmful, it does show that they are something like a check engine light for critical thinking skills. For a classic exposition on why this is such a big deal, I highly recommend reading W.K. Clifford's The Ethics of Belief. You can find a copy of this online for free, or one on Amazon for very cheap. Number 4. Weird beliefs tend to come packaged together. While we seldom think of beliefs as something of a total package, they are. Usually, for example, when we talk about politics, if you tell me what one person believes on one policy, I can probably guess what they believe on many others. Believing in weird things is similar to this. As any skeptic will tell you who has frequently engaged with the public, if one person believes in UFOs, then they are far more likely to believe in something like Bigfoot. Just as in the case of the aforementioned political worldviews, people who have adopted this giant bundle of weird beliefs defend it as though it is a worldview in and of itself. Although this is certainly not true of all people who accept things like conspiracy theories and pseudoscience. Many see an attack on their beliefs as an attack on them. If, for example, you criticize the claims of a creationist, or someone who thinks that the earth is flat, you're not just attacking their beliefs, you're attacking their worldview, everything they stand for, their ethics, and what is important to them. In other words, you're attacking them as a person. The inherent danger in this is it turns a conversation about what is real, what exists, and how we should use evidence to come to conclusions into something like a political conversation. This means a very basic conversation about something like if the earth is flat or not turns into something like Democrats versus Republicans. As anyone who has had a political conversation with someone who disagrees with them about very basic matters can tell you, this can make things very toxic and nasty, and can make it unable for us to settle any disputes. Number 5. If one accepts the false answers of pseudoscience and weird things instead of the real answers, then they are missing out on quite a lot of magnificence and splendor in reality. Pseudoscience and other weird beliefs cannot hold a candle when they are compared to actual science when it comes to things like strangeness or magnificence or wonder or beauty. Nothing a pseudoscientist has ever thought of is more strange than a black hole or more beautiful than the creatures in our actual oceans. If one focuses on the fake answers, like haunted houses and Bigfoot, then they're missing out on the wonders of the real world around them. As someone who has been on both sides of this fence, I can attest to this anecdotally firsthand. Personally, I believed in almost any weird thing you can possibly think of. The Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, aliens, haunted houses, creationism, crystal healing, all of it. When I started taking science classes in college and reading pop science books by people like Carl Sagan, however, I was blown away by how much more deep and profound and beautiful science was. While it took me a little time to come to this realization, I'm very glad that I did. This is because when it comes to finding meaning and beauty in the world, nothing can compare to what actually exists. To see what I mean, I highly recommend picking up one of Carl Zimmer's books on viruses, or one of Carl Sagan's classics on outer space. These will blow your mind in a way that conspiracy theories and haunted houses simply cannot. While this jump may be scary for some people to make, it was, at least in my opinion, highly worth it. And that concludes this top 5 countdown. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe below. If you're feeling particularly generous, you can also donate below on Patreon. And until next time, stay skeptical and thanks for listening.